And we're recording. Alright, so I just got some notes, like a presentation laid out here just to make it kind of prettier. We're talking about is sort of the relationship, vague, general relationship, I'm not an expert, relationship between states, companies, and individuals. Now, the thing about, let's see if I got here. I tried to narrow it down like just in vague fundamental principles what the difference with a couple, like a state and company. In a way, they fit some common definitions. Maybe I took that one out. In a way, it fits some common definitions. It's like a concept above the individual, greater than the sum of its parts, kind of in a legal sense. And it's run by proper authorities. It's not a state apart, but it is like an entity apart. And corporations, well, companies, where it's allowed, can operate in other countries as well. It can cross borders. And it spreads kind of like another blob on the map. And it's like one lives in the other and one is taxed by the other. And here we get terms here just to define what I'm talking about here. Parasitic and symbiotic. So parasitic is posing a drain and or detriment to the host party and or its working members, roughly. Symbiotic, receiving or taking a benefit or benefits in return, or returning benefit to host or host dependencies, which is like everything they depend on, they need that doing good too. And or its working members, which say like the citizens or the employees. Now, here's something. Let's wait on that. Well, let's jump right into this one. The rich rule the poor, and the controlling members of companies rule parts of the economy itself through control of the companies that make up the economy of the state. Controlling members can elect to be paid more, and wouldn't we? A lot of us, we would, right? And so that, I think that's one of the things about rich and poor. You say like the corruption of the corporate fat cats. I mean, like you saying like you wouldn't pay yourself more. Like I would. It's the imbalance. It's the imbalance of power. It's like the difference in a judge and somebody trying to defend himself. Like a judge pops off his temper. It's like he got fire breath. You know what I mean? It's just not fair. The way the decision are divided up, and this one, it's like I don't know how to say specific, like case by case. Some of them are more fair than others. It's like never mind. Anyway, I made this to show. I was kind of playing with it. It's like a graph, right? So the base of that cone represents the foundation of a company, or really the state. Let's say that black circle is the entire taxable individual base, or the entire net of money that a company makes. And then how tall the cone is. And it would wiggle. It wouldn't be a perfect cone. It'd be like a weird, like a mushy Play-Doh Christmas tree or something like that. That's how tall the company is and how much talent it's made of. Like the talent pool, that's the shape of its payroll. And then the little box around it is in pencil to make it a different color. It's just the distribution of revenue. And it's not a perfect square to a perfect cone, but it can be like that, it can be like that, it can be like that. That's one of those, it's like a little more totalitarian. You see that it just goes one little tippy top, and then all that money, that box around it. all that money's, and it's not. Shit, I don't even know, to be honest. But what I was doing this for, was to kind of try to come up with a model. I need that one. So as you keep going, the state represents law. The company represents some independence from the state or heads of state. Thus, a separate entity. The economy of the state is generally comprised of companies and individual working members, of these companies. And, there's individuals that are just freelancers too. Kind of like they are their own company, or they're their own private company, not corporation. Those on the list too. Private company bears a separate definition from corporation, because corporation is kind of like a council. If you don't know, it's like a miniature. It's like an oligarchy. It's like a miniature little republic at the board, and no one really owns it, and they can all be removed and replaced. So the corporation stands apart from any individual. Private company is just owned by the owner. And an LLC, I think, has to be the same people that founded the LLC. Once somebody leaves the LLC, I might be mistaken on that. If you set up an LLC with somebody, they all have to stay in the LLC, or it has to file to be a different LLC. Even if somebody just leaves. I think that's how it goes. I don't know. This is limited liability corporation though, still, isn't it? Limited liability company. I don't know. The economy of the state is generally comprised of companies and individual working members. Individuals are subject to the state and to the company of their employment. Neither state nor the company or any other are subject to the individual, other than those owned or driven or partly driven by that individual. So if they're not a CEO or CEO or president or down the ranks, that they all got their little bit of influence, and then somebody's got more than others. They just work there. And right here. Hold up. All right, so someone was just ambling down the road in their truck. I heard their motor. That creeped me out a little bit. Put the cigarette out. So these terms come in: parasitic and symbiotic. Point in summary, I guess we get to that first. Go ahead and say that first. Entities like companies and states and nations support and or subdue each other and compete in ways both defined and undefined. Let's say real terms, and unspoken terms, and they train one another's growth and failure as such. So that's saying what it's saying on another page. It's just about virtue of you having competition with another company. They're shaping your company because you can't get their business while they're getting their business. So you got to get something else business. So that's gonna send yours going off in another direction. When any entity becomes parasitic, it then, for that while, becomes a detriment. For that while. Now, they could come up all fat and juiced up, being a leech off of you, and then come around one day, it turned out it was kind of a good thing to have around. Big old fat leech, in the water. Come back around. Turn out good for you or bad for some of your competition. All right, but then they're requiring this opinion word. Require I don't want to say it so hard. Requiring resolution. Now, the state, the state represents law again. And we think law, like taxation. You can't do this, you can't do that. Where's my other page? That one's in a minute. If it wasn't somehow parasitic and somehow, so if entities are able to take ground and control, which between the lot of them do comprise the state, the nation state, the nation or the state separately, or the province or whatever you want to call it. It's the state kind of entity. If entities are able to take ground and control, then their ruling individuals are, by extension. And like I said, like who wouldn't pay themselves more money? And the reason people, the thing about being rich is being relatively rich, rich relative to everyone else. And that offers, and you say it's corrupt when you don't like what they do with it, and I do too. But it's power. But you gotta think, like you say freedom, it's the same exact thing. Power to do whatever we want. Well, the way things are today, and personally, I think at some point, if civilization is gonna make it far enough, gotta get rid of money, dude. Like, got to do shit. It's got to be done, whether it made money or not. And don't need to do all this bullshit just to make money. And people wouldn't. A lot, a lot of the companies come up, their whole model and their whole product and all this stuff is strictly not because people really need it. And it's a waste of materials and things like that. That once you use those materials a few times, recycle them a few times, really can't get it all back. Certain like plastics and things. And those are good. Like those block cosmic radiation. That's spaceship shit, but it's going to the ocean now. And it comes back and they scoop any of it out. If they do scoop any of it out, it's not gonna be the same quality. If for-profit entities, ruling parties are allowed to reap for themselves from the revenues thereof in these little cone and box schemes, they're disproportionate to their value to the entity or its other working members or parent host entities. And they are able to simply, whether they do or not. That ended up funny because I started on a point and the way it ended up, then yeah, that's right. So if they are able to, then they are able to. So it doesn't really mean they do by law. I think I don't know if I've heard of any pro bono CEOs, vice presidents, companies. It's like they pretty much want to get paid pretty good, but not the same each. I can speculate that much, but I don't know any specifics. But at some point, once they get to the point of where the show I was talking about, they start cutting people out. They start taking people's jobs away to save money, to save the company money, replacing people with self-checkout machines, robots, things like that. It becomes a detriment to people overall. And those are the working members of the state, the working members, the functional members, the living people that is made of. And it's not that when you do it at all, because in things, automation helps a lot. It's true. But if it's going to help growth, if it's going to cut costs, it's like, there's one way to do it, there's another way to do it. Then it's like, I really hate to correct it, even try to correct it, because if they do that, it's like that was their market decision. And if they take a blow, if they eat dookie later, they hit the dirt, they face plant somewhere decades down the road, if it takes that long, or even a century. Like if Walmart, I'll say, everybody talk about Walmart, and I still go to damn Walmart. I don't hate Walmart. It's like the whale, It's like Leviathan. It's too damn big. It's everywhere. It's like, why everybody? But then, yeah, you still, it's just that they eat so much. But it's with love, we gotta take it down. It's time for a new generation, that's all. And that's another point. That's one thing I was thinking about before I started making this presentation. It's like when companies get so big, what's there for anyone coming up later? You know what I mean? Like before, I think basically, let's just say before the 20th century, this laying in the ballpark. Before the 20th century, the biggest things for, like corporations today, like Walmart or McDonald's or something like that, they had that many locations, man. It was like you were like the Bank of Venice or something, the Templars or the Hospitallers or something like that. One of them names I don't know everything about either. But they had that. That was like armies to even have that. Now it's like because of the way things are now, society is now, and technology allowed so much more, even back in like 60s, 70s, and before that. Like this is the first time we see companies get this big. But now they're replacing people with machines and code to keep up with everything. And you check yourself out. And pretty soon talking about robots gonna be stocking shelves and things like that. Oh, what is it gonna be like? Is it gonna be free stuff? Because like nobody's gonna like who's gonna work if they plopping them down everywhere like Independence Day, and they're gonna do that. Just as one example, which they still hire people. I hope they are, if nothing else, required to hire people. And seriously, I hate even to badmouth it because I feel like I talk about a specific name. If I get anywhere, somebody could come after me. You know what I mean? For saying shit. And it's not to defame. It's just like real shit. But this is like also the first time that the world has seen this kind of thing. So it's kind of like the first trials, first error. But the entire economy is comprised of all the corporations. I cannot list 20 necessarily by name. I know there's big ones like some people don't know Darden. So there's like a bunch of different restaurants that are actually the same corporation, or they used to be. I don't know now. I think they owned Red Lobster and like O'Charlie's or Applebee's and Olive Garden, I think maybe, and all this and that. And anyway, so there's like fewer than. Anyway, I can't necessarily list 20. That was the point. And oh, here's that one I was looking for. See, thing about states, you see, comprised of individuals or subsidiary entities, summed up into one entity independent from its members except for proper authorities, so to speak. So yeah, so when they get the job, they're the proper authorities, they're the law enforcement, and basically the lawmakers and the judges and the politicians and things like that, and the ambassadors, and they lead the military, they lead war and peace. All right, corporation is kind of like comprised of individuals or subsidiary entities, summed up into the entity independent from its members except for proper authority. See, it's kind of like coming down to the same thing. So it's like they can't secede and do whatever they want because they're subject to the state. And it's not like a bad thing necessarily, because that's what kept people together so long was these ideas that were above the self, even above what is above the king. It's the entire country itself. It's like the whole way you put it all into, the way you stuff all this crap into a bag and take it is to convince ultimately, and it's true because it's an abstract concept. The way you stuff it all into the bag and keep it is to convince everything in the bag that it's better than everybody, and it's not you. It's us. It's all of us. It's family. Big family. You ever been told you it was a family where you work? I don't work there no more. I was doing a good job. It was fucked up. Let me manage it. It was kind of big. And anyway, how to solve the problem. So wait, I mean, you got to the problem. So yeah, when they do become parasitic, it's when they do. All right, and that's when it's the decision of the people making the decisions decide when they're parasitic and they get away with it long enough, and they decide all these decisions that ultimately between the lot of them, for so long, however long it takes, and they drive this company into a detriment, it becomes parasitic. And how does one control a parasite? Well, it's because basically when you take medicines that you poison this parasite. And how do you do that in like these abstract models and crap? To see, this is an alternative to shattering and just breaking down the company. It's like, all right, so like different blobs, different states, and incorporated be like different blobs on a map. Training the blobs, and they train each other. And there's two things. You can outcompete in markets, and there's like legal regulation. And third one, self-control. It's like they have to change of heart, or they just come in and be a hero, do the right thing. And I think this distribution issue is a part of it. I think there's something in there that's like gold, in a way. There's a sweet spot in there. And it's thing is, it's like if everybody did get paid more, wouldn't everything kind of cost more? So like where is that spot where, I mean, ultimately, if people need jobs, people gotta work. I mean, if people gotta work, people need jobs. If people gonna need jobs, that means there's gonna have to be jobs to do, which means somebody gotta do the jobs. And I want to talk. I'm unemployed. I'm on SSI and shit. And I've been that way for a while. I gave up. I just different shit, and I didn't eat shit anymore after a while. I'm looking at it, but that's where we're catching up to me now. This is where I started this thing. This is coming up with some ideas for how you train legally. For one thing, how does a law come in and be these? Let's say legal is code and code is automation. I think part of it, I think really like tax, tariff. I think that's cheap, lazy. That's like hacking it in a way. In a way, it's not, because they do take time to tax specific points and things. And that was looking at those specific points and things on one of these. This one. Yeah. Different point. Example of dependencies. So dependencies is the points. Like if you want to tax, let's say you put a tariff on foreign, anything made with foreign labor. So maybe that was like, so the tariffs on anything like made in China, that would go to one of the, like some department stores, definitely, because there's all this stuff made in China. So that's targeting a point. One dependency is like cheap goods. They need to supply cheap goods. Or if you make those more expensive, then it's like hitting that snip and the bonsai or whatever it is. You got to grow this way. After you lose that branch, it's got to come out something else. And in a way, it protects parasitic behavior prone things to do that. But if you want to keep it like for the now, I mean, yeah, I think it's like smart. Like you gotta live for the day, for real, because there's no long game without the short game. But anyway, so like, what kind of, like, for example, farming is real estate heavy. So if you're doing like high property taxes, you're hurting farming. Manufacturing is raw materials heavy, parts heavy. Waste potential is high. I think it depends on what, and pharmaceuticals, raw materials heavy when it comes to chemicals. Waste potential is high. I mean, there's pharmaceuticals. I don't know, but in my imagination, I mean, you could end up with like gallons of bad waste for like gallons of maybe even less gallons. Seriously, less gallons of the medicine. Of course, that's usually potent, pure shit. Is like not what you take. They got to spread that out real fine to the milligram and things like that. But yeah, financial and banking, to be honest, is right here. It's an unfamiliar subject to me when it comes to, because it's kind of basically the same as all these. Like I've heard of it a bunch, but I don't know anything about them. It's the thing with financial and banking is it's not real good. Like when even money, because money is one of these abstract concepts. Especially when you got fiat currency, even gold, and you're on a gold standard. I don't see why people have so much faith in the gold standard. It's just like a temporary fix. This thing is going to happen again when people start to realize that gold don't come out of the ground as this magical wealth energy. It's just, it is money because it's basically been not so useful. It's the stone the builders rejected. What it does is be money because it's left over. So when it comes to financial and banking, see, it's real estate heavy because of and things like that, because of seizing people's houses and things, and there's debt potential, and then companies and others depend on necessary materials, real estate, other goods and services, i.e., parts, and waste management at a cost that allows them to return a profit or at least recover the costs. These are all points of leverage for the entity under its control and against it by others. So, hope you got all that. I'm about to talk on the straight because some people are having a cigarette. Point in case, I had some idea, and I was gonna do like a whole pretty map scheme and everything. And second. I left a comment on somebody's video about big farming corporations taking over, buying up real estate and things like that. And I thought one way to clip that back and maybe make it a symbiotic sort of arrangement, a little bit of back and forth with the state at least, and with some individuals, is that if they had to only be able to lease the land once they're so big a company, to only be able to lease the land or pay sort of, let's say, to own for years, but then it goes to the state and it's back to state land. And then they have to lease it from the state or give it up. And after some years of farming, it might be depleted anyway if they ain't taking care of the soil. So then it'll be open, and if the state gets some land to work with, that's not such a bad thing. And it's not totally like a forever sustainable thing. I still think like at some point you gotta do things for the right thing to do, and money can't be the object. Like it's you look at all the bad things about industry in the West because all these consequences of like it was cheaper to throw this shit in the ocean, and it's not cheaper to go clean it up, and it don't make money until someone can figure out a way this shit is worth gold. You know what I'm saying? So that was one thing that I thought it might kind of help to sort of like relegate it down, float it down a little softer with these big farm industries taking over, wanting to pick on home growers and shit. And then let's say I think in general, to protect jobs in the water, in the economic water, is that And I don't know if they do this now. If they do this now, it's still like being the problem somewhere. That's a little more disturbing. But you should not tax a company like for the money it's got to pay its people. I don't know if they do or not. But it's a good idea to say, no, you don't get taxed for payroll. Everything paid out to employees, no, don't get taxed. Except for like maybe just to say above, no one beneath the board, basically. I would say that actually. Of course, it don't matter. I think the board, like the company, can have so much more than even the maybe billion a year you might think somebody can make. If some one person making $1 billion a year, that's making on this company making a lot of money. But just to keep it where, well, see, no. So if it's adjusted by, anyway, something like that, like anybody getting paid less than whatever, big enough number to be right, you don't pay tax on that, or the company don't, or you say all of it, because I don't think it's gonna matter too much, is it? I don't know, man. Tax on $1 billion, a lot of money. So yeah, like what I was saying, yeah, and so that it does bear more consequence when they're running away with more money. Because if people depend on these jobs, then they depend on the health of this corporation, right? So you want to protect these things while you got to have them. And you got to have, and it's like, right, I'm not against corporations, don't get me wrong. Because if it wasn't corporations, it'd be state-owned. It'd be state-owned companies. I mean, it's like, what are you going to say? It'd just be arms the same communist monster. So I'm for it. I'm for corporations. So I'm going to rig out better. I mean, if they're not going to do it themselves. And the thing with financial and banking, when they seize houses, I don't think banks should be able to own real estate as a bank. I don't care. They can lease it too. When they seize it, yeah, okay, it's theirs to sell, and they get this long and this and that, but I don't think they should be able to own it, but maybe control it for a number of years. Control it for a number of years like they own it, and then theirs to sell. But frankly, if they're allowed to, then it still allows them to play those cards, those moves, and it's kind of like cheap. It can be really cheap or come out the same. So really, and honestly, I think when a house is seized, and this might already be the law, when a house is seized by it's repossessed or whatever, uh, the people that they took it from should have some time. Maybe like part of these years that the bank maybe they gotta wait for the people they took it from to come up with something, try to get it back, catch up on their payments. Because like what happened to this country, what happened to a lot of these countries is like the shit inside sucked it dry and it's dying. What wasn't good for the individuals wasn't good for the country. I mean, it's not one of these good for the game, good for the flock thing or whatever thing. But no, I mean, like, you got no country if you got no people. Your people ain't doing good. Your country ain't doing good. What was another one? This is what I do. It just interests me. So basically, any of these points, if they tags or tariffs, all this stuff, they could. At the moment, I support tariffs on a lot of foreign goods because we need to pull it back. I say we like it's my business. It's frankly I don't know what the future is of mine, but I'm not gonna be the one that didn't play for the team. So just for a while, we need to tear shit big. But that's gonna raise prices. Yeah, that's fine. But then it would be more profitable to buy American shit, and then it'd be more profitable to make American shit. Then it'd be more profitable to hire Americans. And if it wasn't, real estate, I didn't have that on here. Real estate, was I wrong about the money? Can a bank own real estate? No, shit. I don't know. But how's that work? But in terms of real estate, I think people like buying and flipping houses a little bit. I think you should have to do something to it. I think you should have to add like build a whole other fucking room on it or something just to sell it within. You gotta wait some years, like 2 or 3 years at least. You know what I mean? Because it inflates things. But then again, if there's so many people, see, if they did that, they'd raise the prices on homes. I think because then it'd be like, well, I bought it, we can't sell it. One house off the market until you get to sell it. So now, then you're gonna raise prices and things because there would be a shortage. So not that. Maybe if you should have to do something to it. But anyway, what it does is just it flips, it pushes the price of housing up. I don't know though, because in the long run, I don't know. I don't know about that one. I think maybe if it was okay, it was like a little easier to go into that shit, with that bank thing or whatever. If that's the way it worked and I was right, then it might be a little softer too. But I'm just showing examples where to say training, like training block. That was the end point ultimately. Laws need to lead to be there to do a more fancy bonds network on the way these things grow. And yeah, I guess I can see where some would say regulating automation too. Ultimately, though, see, here's what you get. It's going to cost more, and they're going to have to pay more people if you get rid of automation to make things in America. But see, that's the thing is when we invented shit that we could do it, have American-made products for a reasonable price without hiring all these Americans that got to be paid so much, if that's what the problem was, then somebody's going to get that technology and they're going to do it, and they're going to make it cheaper with their slaves too. See, I'm stuck here thinking, wheels are spinning. Uh, I think you get it. I think you get it. We need better code.